Phoenix Down Radio is on the air.
Welcome, everybody, to Phoenix Down Radio, episode number 192. I'm your host, Close Nightbringer, and joining me is Seyrr Timono. Seyrr, how are you today?
Oh, I am alive.
That's
Probably.
always a good thing. Well, I mean, check your pulse real quick. Check your pulse.
No, I hold to it's always a possibility that we are in an increasingly unsubtle purgatory. This is a valid answer to any question, including what were you thinking of for lunch today?
Purgatory?
No. What were you thinking of for lunch today? Have you considered we might be in an increasingly unsubtle purgatory? Then they look shocked, and then you just get full say in what you get for lunch. 10 out of 10. Can recommend. Probably has no lasting effects.
If I knew which button was the crickets, I would hit the crickets right now.
Oh, come on. Like you haven't all thought about it now, after I mentioned it.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the Matrix kind of was that whole thing, basically, where we're inside of a program.
Yeah,
dreaming.
I mean, these days you need that increasingly unsubtle. That is a very important point to add in. Like, if this is a subtle purgatory, it is being way and way less subtle about it lately.
Yeah, a lot of glitches in the Matrix.
But otherwise, stuff is not bad. We had a library mini conference training type thing where I was one of the volunteers for helping out, and I got slated with photography. They marked actually a bunch of us for it. I think the assumption was that we would just use our phones to take pictures of goings on during the thing and add to it. But I still have the DSLR that I borrowed from the library early in the pandemic. We haven't needed it for any of the programs. The programs it was going to be used for ended up being canceled. Okay. So I may have been doing stuff like getting on the floor during the mayor's speech in order to get a really good angle on his profile.
But aren't you supposed to, shouldn't you shoot from above? Doesn't that give you a better look versus underneath?
Depends. On some of them, I wanted to capture like this, capturing with the backdrop of the slides on the overhead projector. Okay. I also got a couple from over-the-shoulder shots of him addressing the audience. There's a variety in there. I got a really good one of the library director with the mayor, so I'm hoping that'll pay off for me at some point.
Okay, that's cool.
But yes, I was capering about with a camera and being very Seyrr, which all of the other librarians are used to and expect. So spend some time developing a reputation. It pays off.
Well, as long as it works out for you, go for it, you know.
Woo! But so yes, usual library shenanigans, fun stuff like that. How about you, Klaus? What's been up?
Pretty crazy couple of weeks here. I think I mentioned it in the last episode. We rented that dumpster, and we threw out a lot of stuff in my house in preparation for, you know, my girlfriend, you know, potentially moving in soon.
Exciting.
And so I've got a cleared out garage. We set up her office here so she can do more work from home, remote working. Built her desk. We built a baker's rack today. Ooh,
what makes it a baker's rack?
It's just the style of it. It's got like 3 different, you know, shelves, and then it's got like an upper unit. Usually you can. I don't know why it's a.
Are they like solid shelves, or is it like graded so you can?
These are solid shelves, but it's got things. If you want, you can hang stuff on the side, or I was
thinking like kind of racks so you can get air circulation around for.
But this is more for. We're using it for my microwave.
Got it.
We pulled the microwave off the counter and we put it on there. I've also moved my water boiler onto it, so it's kind of a microwave slash breakfast nook tea stand kind of thing. Actually,
you get really more counter space from.
Exactly. That's our biggest thing is. For me, I made it work with what I had, but if I'm going to have somebody living with me, I need to make sure that they can also utilize, you know, the living space. So we're trying to compromise and make things work out properly for us. So,
have you considered being an inconsiderate jerk? I hear women love that.
You know, I've been pretty lucky for the last year being a considerate jerk.
You know, okay, but keep that one in your back pocket.
I think, you know, if I continue to be considerate, I think in this case it's going to actually benefit me, so I'm going to keep going with that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm just pretty lucky so far, so we'll run with what's working.
All right.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Just in case, remember, you can always flush all her jewelry down the toilet.
Or I cannot and buy her more jewelry and make her even happier. Because you have to remember, she listens to the podcast now.
Ooh. I can make this worse in so many ways.
No, I don't think you could. And that's not a challenge accepted, Seyrr.
Aw. All right, fine. Let's just get on with it then.
Aside from that, like I said, just been working a lot. And like I said, this has been taking up a good amount of time, but it's been fun. Life is one of those things where you don't know what to expect. And it just the fact that it's continuing to get a little bit different and just be intriguing every day. I like that. And the fish are doing great still too. You can kind of see Selfie in the background there. We have been doing a few aquarium streams throughout the week. So if you follow us on Twitch here, you'll catch those. Nice, relaxing, lo-fi music. Good times. Just going for a mood that we're just trying to make people feel better.
I put them on during work from time to time. It is pleasant.
Yep, and like I said, it's just nice to watch them flow. I'm very happy with how clear the tank has been staying, so I'm very happy with that. I don't know if you remember the old tank; it got really cloudy, really easily. This one's been really good, so I'm gonna keep it up.
on those aquarium streams, like the clarity has been just gorgeous. It's been really light and beautiful. It's nice. That
and the fish definitely do have personalities. Watching them swim across, it's hilarious. So
nice.
But that's basically been up for me. Want to thank our Patreon producers, Nick Nar, Aurori, Ravenheart, and Mika. Thank you so much for your support out on Patreon. If you want to support us, you can go out to patreon.com/PhoenixDownRadio. And anything like a dollar or more a month will get you access to early access to our shows and helps us to support the show. We appreciate that. So thank you very much. Let's go ahead and jump into our game and community news. Now, initially, I was not sure what we were going to talk about this week because I completely forgot that FanFest in London was this weekend. And 2, the news was really, really, really thin over the past 2 weeks since the last episode.
Yeah.
So I had one article initially up until basically last night. So, but it's a really cool little piece.
We've talked about it coming in bursts and waves, and man, that like the low point of that wave was coming at just the wrong time for us. We got really lucky here.
Yeah, exactly. This first bit of news comes from Eurogamer and was written by Liv Nyan. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Ngan. It might be Gan, but I'm horrible with some pronunciations. Anyway, apparently Square Enix is producing stage shows for both Final Fantasy Brave Exvius and Final Fantasy 16. Earlier this week, Square Enix announced it's producing a new stage play based on the mobile game Warriors of the Visions, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. This particular play will run from the 23rd of February to March 3rd, 2024. And that goes... and then later on in the year, an all-female musical adaptation of Final Fantasy 16 will be starting in May.
Yeah,
who was the group that did that
Brave. So it's that all-female Final Fantasy 16 is the Takarazara review, I believe it is. They are like prominent in Japan as an all-female theater troupe. I remember my anime group actually watched a couple series specifically based around that one. Kageki Shoujo was the one that we watched with students who are studying to hopefully try to get into that troupe. But yeah, really well known. They have women play all the roles. So you get like some where you have like the more feminine or like kind of more masculine or androgynous ones to play across from each other. It can strike this really fascinating romantic vibe. It's pretty fascinating stuff. The fact that they're the ones being tapped for Final Fantasy 16 is really interesting, especially given all that we've seen of the various portrayals of the characters in it, doing it with that all-female cast. I am interested to see what kind of vibe it strikes. I also was absolutely not expecting that Brave Exvius was big enough to get a stage play.
Right.
I certainly played it for a while. I know that the plot was long, and to me it felt at least times kind of like rambling, or just like getting a little bit kudzu-ish in terms of all the various things side things it went into, though some of that may just be the very special events they use to add plot stuff.
Well, no, you got to
But
remember now. This one is based off of Warriors of the Visions.
so that would be the mobile one? That would be the tactical one?
It's the newer of the two. Yes.
Okay, so the tactical one, got it.
Yeah,
So
Brave
it's in that same
Exvius.
setting, but
Yeah, it's a similar world, but it doesn't have the same characters necessarily.
right.
So yeah, that one was a more story driven mobile game, I believe.
Yeah, it had a thing that at least at some points was reminiscent of like your traditional tactics, like the Evil East games or things like that, where you've got a little bit more of a based on the political situation. In that particular case, I remember you had the royalty of various countries, clashes between nations, all that kind of thing. I could see that lending itself to a stage adaptation.
Yep, and it looks like the group that's going to be running the Brave Exvius show is it's not like a troop like what's doing the 16 show. It's just a number of people they were able to they probably had people try out and go for those there that way.
It sounds like something where they put out a casting call and things like rather than giving it to a theater troupe.
Exactly. But
interesting.
Could be interesting if you're going to be in Japan in February, March, or May. Check out those shows. Unfortunately, I will not. Maybe they'll be out on YouTube eventually. We'll have to see.
Oh, ever since I found out that like Nier had stage plays, it's so strange to me to think of like, oh yeah, like it's this particular game, but I don't really know what gets made into plays. Like in general, the whole like, oh hey, maybe we'll make a stage play of it. Like for any kind of property, I've never really thought about that as much of a thing.
Yeah,
still weird to me.
But maybe it's more common in Japan than it is here.
Maybe. Support the arts, more theater, etc., etc.
Yeah, do that. I mean, it's good to support people, trying to be artistic and have some fun.
I'm actually going to a community theater production a couple weeks from now, which is why I won't be at the next week's show. Some friends scored tickets to our community theater's production of Young Frankenstein, which I'm expecting to be a blast.
It'll be amazing. And being you haven't seen it yet, at all, even like you haven't seen the film, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it.
The audience is going to yell at me so much for that. I blame you.
You'll be fine. I mean, I don't think it has the same type of
no, I mean, our audience is going to yell at me so much for that.
No, they'll be fine. Don't worry. Our audience is very supportive.
Over the coals.
Our audience is very supportive because I mean, you're going to watch it after you watch the play.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess.
So there you go. All right, the rest of the stuff is mainly news that came from FanFest. So let's jump right into it, starting with All Saints Wake, starting October 27th in Final Fantasy XIV. Let me copy and paste this URL here.
I had been starting to wonder about that. Usually they would have announced All Saints Wake before now. It tends to be leading up to Halloween. Mm-hmm. So the only guess I had was, since they often work in kind of like current goings on into like some of the side text or maybe like the little after messages, that there might be something about Dawn Trail that they wanted to save until they'd actually had FanFest. Because yeah, this is a little bit late for an All Saints Wake announcement.
Well, maybe I suppose they might have just been working on everything so much that they wanted to make sure that they had it ready to go. And
maybe.
I don't...
Like, I would not be surprised if some of the side commentary in there includes some more like vague hints or references to things that we may be encountering in Dawn Trail.
Yeah, but also you have to remember that last year's All Saints Wake happened after the first of the year. So it happened this year, actually.
It's true. That was a weird time.
But, I mean, there were reasons behind it, so we understand.
Yep.
Or was it last year's?
I can't even remember.
There was one that we had. It was after Heaven's Turn. I remember. I don't remember if it was the past one or the one before that. But regardless, so the event runs until November 13th, and you get an All Saints Charm emote and bat-themed wall decoration for completing the storyline.
That wall decoration, I want to say it's a reprise of one they've had in previous years. That has always been pretty popular, so it's nice to see it back.
Oh, I don't know if I saw that one before.
pretty sure. Let's see.
They had paws going up the wall at one point, but I don't think they ever had bats.
Maybe I am thinking of. It does look like our favorite clown family from previous years is back again to try to raise further devilry. Also, given the relatively recent MSQ revelations we've had about the Void, about the things going on in there, I do wonder if they'll be incorporating some more of that into this year's story. It should be a fun time.
It could be interesting if Zero's involved. But I doubt they would do that because...
a thing that they frequently do is to have people milling about at the end, the NPCs that you could talk to, and then they may include additional ones based on quest unlocks.
Yeah, so I mean, in those cases, it would make sense if we could either get Zero or Unakalhai maybe to stop by.
Unakalhai probably not.
Or wait, isn't Unakalhai on the first?
Yes. I don't think they would be bringing him over for that.
That might be tougher. Or they could show up depending on if a person's maybe not that far in Endwalker.
Maybe.
Or not Endwalker, but Shadowbringers.
The quest completion flags on that would be kind of crazy.
Well,
also, they frequently bring in relatively minor NPCs.
Yeah,
I want to say was it Heaven's Turn? I believe they had some of the Studium NPCs, the ones who are doing the translation work. I believe they had them as some of the ones for that. So oftentimes it's a chance to bring in some of those lesser used characters as well.
Yep, we'll see where they're at. But like I said, so that starts next week.
Yep.
Next thing that's coming, actually in a little over 2 weeks, or a little under 2 weeks. Because I believe they mentioned patch 6.51 was going to be coming on the 31st. And with that, we're going to be getting a Fall Guys collaboration in 14. So you guys remember earlier they had the Fall Guys Final Fantasy 14 outfits in Fall Guys.
Yep, they had the season pass, including such things as Alphino and Alice outfits. I think there was a Cactuar one. There was a Dragoon outfit, various other decorations and the like. That was the Fall Guys end of this collaboration. And so now it appears we're getting the FF14 side of it with Fall Guys games coming to the Gold Saucer.
Yep. More information will be coming once we get the patch notes for 651. But yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. They did mention... that there's that it's not going to be there permanently. It'll probably be one of those games that's going to come and go.
Yeah.
So it looks fun though.
They did preview some of the different types of prizes that you can get, including outfits with Fall Guys, color schemes and characters on them. Lots of fun, goofy stuff.
Yeah, that should be a good time. That's one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing. But
it will be interesting to see how they map some of those classic Fall Guys style games into a Final Fantasy XIV setting. I always go back to the Monster Hunter one, where each Monster Hunter World and Final Fantasy XIV each had a thing that kind of reasonably faithfully recreated the mechanics of the other. So it's fun to see the mechanics teams get to put their creative sides to work in how to replicate the feel and vibe of another game's mechanics in it. Love that kind of thing.
I've heard a lot of good things that the behemoth fight in Monster Hunter was really well done. You know, just like the Rathalos one was in 14.
Yep. It's not just that it's well done, but also that it manages to have a vibe that kind of like replicates some aspects of the mechanics.
Exactly.
Again, like you were mentioning 14, where the extreme is the 4-man, where healing isn't available and you're meant to be using potions for your healing, where some number of 3 deaths ends it even if the party hasn't wiped. All the stuff like that. It was a really impressive. And so I'm looking forward to seeing if they continue that trend of really paying homage to all aspects of the game, not just the appearance, but the actual gameplay.
Yep, it'll be interesting to see how they push that in the Gold Saucer. From what I understand so far, the event is going to be a 24-person event. And yeah, it's probably be very game show-like with different rounds, and we'll go for, maybe something along the lines of like the Yojimbo.
I do wonder if they'll have it the same where you have people being steadily eliminated, and then would you still stay in to watch it, or no?
Probably would be my guess, because I would love. I mean, or you could choose to leave if you wanted to, I guess. But
Right, but I mean, you can do that in the regular Fall Guys as well. But just the aspect of the battle royale with people being steadily knocked out throughout.
Yep. Not 60 people, but 24 is still a decent number of people to be teamed up against. So. Our next crossover is one that people have been talking about, and finally the directors from Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XVI got to sit down and talk about it.
Someday that joke will die. Today is not that day.
No. This is a story coming from Nobis Crystallis, and it was written by Tony Garso, so thank you very much for this. This did also come from FanFest, and the event is called The Path Infernal. They designed it to not spoil any story beats of the PS5 game for Final Fantasy 16, but it will have a bunch of rewards, especially including Clive's outfit and Torgal mounts and minions.
Yeah, I know people who, if all they got was the Torgal stuff and nothing else, they would still be there 100% for it. And
I am including a link to the they made a video trailer on it that it shows the fight. It's the 16's version of Ifrit in the Bowl of Embers, and you're fighting. Yeah. Warrior of Light is fighting with what looks like Clive, and then they show the rewards at the end of it, and yeah, I am very looking forward to it.
Yeah, given with the Final Fantasy 15 collaboration, we got to fight Garuda, but it was 15's version of Garuda. Yep. Having a different game's version of the Primal as a way to kind of reference and play up the stuff that's unique about it. Again, as someone who appreciates that mechanic stuff, I'm pleased to see it.
Yeah, it looks like it'll be a fun time. It's going to be a time-limited event, I'm sure, but it probably will come back multiple times, like the 13 event did, and the 15 event, I think, came back twice as well. You can only complete it once for the rewards.
Ah, right.
But I think they bring it back for people who were unable to take it on initially, so always a great way to do things.
Portions of that 15 glamour are just great. I would feel sad if it was eventually cut off entirely.
Yeah. And then the final bit of news also comes from Nova Crystallis and written by Tony Garso. It is the actual coverage of the keynote from early this morning.
Yeah, this info is around 12 hours old at this point, so still absolutely being debated, dissected, speculated, all of that fun stuff. Everything here should probably still be treated as preliminary.
Yep. I'm also including another YouTube link. They extended the teaser trailer. I recommend everybody goes and watches it because there is a lot of new information that comes out of that we're going to be talking a little bit about.
It's the usual thing. They've start with a very short teaser trailer, and then they release it a few more times, each time adding a bit more of it. We saw this, I remember with Shadowbringers, where we had that initial duel between Elidibus and the Warrior of Light, and then adding on more and more details of the first.
Yep. The biggest piece that came out of this extended trailer was they showed more of that fight between Galul Jaja and the Warrior of Light, and they showed how the Warrior of Light was fighting. He was fighting in a two-bladed style.
Yeah, this fits with a lot of the predictions that the new class would be something that used the scouting gear. It now seems like scouting is associated with more agile melees and might be just generally associated with two weapon styles, since those seem to be a more finesse, agility-focused fighting style. Yep, though it still uses strength as the primary stat, of course.
Well, actually, no, this is dexterity-based.
Does it?
Ninja is dexterity based.
Ninja is. You can tell how often I am on Ninja. Bloody hell.
And so is our new job, Viper.
Yeah.
It's a new
F in the chat for those who had been really, really hoping for Corsair.
Yep. It's a new original job revealed for Final Fantasy XIV. Melee DPS catered to players asking for a new dual wielding job different from Ninja. And it does seem like it will fit that build. You can there was a couple of spots in that trailer and then in the job trailer where it shows the Warrior of Light taking their two blades, joining them together, similar to what the Red Mage does with their sword and their crystal focus.
Yep. I've seen comparisons to Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber, Surge from Chrono Cross with his double sword swallow weapon, as well as Zidane from Final Fantasy IX with his two thief swords that would be combined into a single weapon for some.
Yep.
Yeah, with him you had like double-bladed swords as well as the two thief swords, and in some of the various Dissidia and other type things, he's been shown disconnecting and reconnecting them as appropriate.
Yep.
Viper does seem also intended to evoke that two-weapon style, with the two swords being the two fangs of a viper.
Yep. And like I said, they will be sharing the same gear as Ninja, tuned towards dexterity, and they use dual blades that can be combined into a dual-sided weapon that held in one hand. Their fighting style is close-ranged and passed down by Turali hunters, and fight so swiftly that it seems they have a haste spell cast on them. So it's going to be a very fast-paced, lot of button presses. But I'm hoping that you don't have to worry about remembering certain combos like you had to with Ninja, the mudras.
Yeah. It does seem like it alternates between quick strikes with the dual blades and then those more powerful joined sword ones that have also invited some speculation of comparisons to Reaper, where you have your powerful burst phases in your damage. Still remains to be seen how it will work in practice, but definitely we've had the comparisons to Ninja just in terms of the speed and number of things to do, as well as that burst phase focused Reaper.
Yeah, and then I will put in one more quick link here. This one is for the little video showing some of the weapon skills for Viper.
Yep. Yeah, it's described as designed to be technically demanding and highly stylish, with frequent opportunities to have players execute abilities in between using weapon skills. So make sure you've got a passable ping, because those OG CDs are going to be important, it sounds like.
All right. And then they initially, remember when they first introduced Dawn Trail, it was kind of expressed to be a summer vacation for the Warrior of Light. So for players that have experienced the first part of patch 6.5, we've gotten a little bit of a glimpse of the scenario to come. But in part 2 of the storyline, coming in patch 6.55, we'll learn better what is in store for the Warrior of Light and the Scions. And this little bit was kind of highlighted within the text. As hope's light dawns once more, a hero looks to new horizons. Winds of opportunity bring a visitor from the far west seeking the Warrior of Light's aid in a rite of succession to determine Tural's next ruler. Alongside Alphino, Alisei, and Erenville, the Warrior of Light embarks upon a journey across the Indigo Deep. Should rumor be true, the contest may lead them to the fabled gates of a city of gold. Little do we know that it will also see the Scions divided. I think they did kind of talk a little bit about that previously as well. That the Scions may be split in their thoughts of what should happen in Tural.
Yeah. Ostensibly, this is we've only seen things that are drawing the twins, Erenville, and the Warrior of Light. But given what we saw in the trailer, we know that the other Scions are going to get drawn into it somehow. These are just our adventuring buddies at this point. They're the folks that we call up when we want to make trouble.
Yeah, but they went into a little bit more details of some of the regions, like Tuliolol, which is the southern region of, which is the capital city of the southern region of Tural, which this southern region is called Yok Tural. And we go to Tuliolol. It's kind of like the hub, kind of like the Crystarium, or would be like
Kugane, Ishgard.
Yep, those types of places for us in the other expansion. So this is where we're going to start our journey.
Mm-hmm.
and it's a sprawling tropical city, and they did specify that for those who got to watch the videos live at FanFest, it's not final music, and the NPCs hadn't been added yet, so it's still fully a work in progress, even though this is going to be out in less than a year.
Yeah, the development footage, it does look like a little bit of a quiet, lonely city, but clearly a lot of those elements that are going to make it feel like the living, breathing locations that other ones are just haven't been put in yet. Even then, it does seem like a city with well-established old buildings, as well as thriving trade areas, lots of different sections to that city, so I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like in its final form.
Yep, and they also talked about a few other different regions, Yak Ta'el and Urkopacha, as well as Kozamauka.
Yep.
And Shaloana, or Shalowani, it looks like is what that one is called.
Kozamauka is a tropical region. It's to the south of that capital region of Tulioli, and it has a bit more of like what you'd expect for your tropical rainforest setting, rivers and streams flowing down from mountains in the west. I mean, breathtaking waterfalls all over the place.
This area is definitely the 14 version of Central and South America.
Yeah, when they did the initial map reveal, they showed the 3 great continents, and when they panned over to the new area, they panned to the southwest. So definitely I'm expecting more of a Central and South America vibe from that as well.
It'd be interesting to see if there's any North American kind of equivalent coming too.
Yep. The jungle area of Kozamauka is home to several different peoples, including one that's of special interest to veterans of the Final Fantasy MMO universe, Moblins, strongly resembling the goblins with whom they share a common ancestry. This tribe is known for their ability to procure useful materials no matter how rare, and they welcome skilled trade folk from other races. Final Fantasy XI players may remember the Moblins as an offshoot of the Goblins, focused on digging deep beneath the earth with a underground city, Molvopolis, that traveled along with them as they spelunked in search of an unknown treasure. The details of which are a major topic of the Chains of Promethea expansion. So, again, given that we had the Mamul Ja as another Final Fantasy XI throwback, it seems like we may be getting quite a few of those F11 throwbacks, and it'll be interesting to see what their take is on the Moblins. Here they had been in 11, they had been a much more cantankerous, disliking humans even more than the goblins did, and also focused a bit on like kind of some of the body modification, grafting bits of metal and machinery into their bodies. Some of the stuff we saw in the Illuminati goblins in 14 was originally the type of thing that the Moblins would have been doing. So it'll be fun to see what they do with them here, how they change them up.
Yeah, but speaking of leaning on Final Fantasy XI for inspiration, they went 100% into Final Fantasy XI for the 24-man, Echoes of Vana'diel.
Oh, wouldn't give us any more than that, but
yep, nothing more than that.
Yeah, just that splash screen with the Final Fantasy XI style logo instantly transported back. I had other friends say like, "Oh, now I have to play FF11." So on, something is like, no, you don't get it. If you didn't spend over a decade being traumatized by this, it's not going to have the same impact. I mean, you can certainly play it now. You can go through. The leveling experience is so much easier, and that's half the bloody point. Let me actually pull up the description of the small shell minion, where for Final Fantasy XIV players, the small shell, that crab minion that you get from beating the It's Not Lupus fate in Eastern Lenosha. The mere sight of this weave wavekin may cause severe psychological trauma to those who spent years of their lives on faraway shores culling his relatives. Valkurm Dune parties. Oh, yep. God, Valkurm Dune parties. Yep. Hours upon hours beating up those crabs.
And then if somebody decided to pull a Gabi train, oh boy.
Oh, that would be when you loved and treasured the Beastmaster, who could charm and release all the various things to get it away and free up the zone again. Of course, you'd never invite them to their parties because of a mistaken thing about how they would crash your XP rates. Poor Beastmasters. But yeah, like 11 is playable now, and for those who do want to understand the story, experience that other stuff, give it a go. It's still going to be a different experience, and that's, maybe not a terrible thing. No one should have to fight a boss for 18 hours until they are throwing up and passing out.
18 hours? I thought they went even longer than that on some of those. I remember.
No, Pandemonium Warden was the one where they reached the 18-hour mark. It did a thing that indicated that there was yet more to this fight, and that was the point where they psychologically broke and gave up.
Okay. I remember it was a long set of fights and things like that, but I thought they because I know some games have actually had even longer than that with types of fights like that, where they had to cycle in, parties and alliances, and yeah, it was crazy.
I was there, man. I mean, I wasn't there. I was not part of the thing, but I was certainly monitoring stuff on the forums and discussing with all things as it was going on.
Yeah, when I heard about that, I was like, nope.
That was the one that broke through to mainstream media.
Mm-hmm. and it actually got a lot of people, because they were concerned that MMOs were dangerous for people at that point because they were so grindy and you had to really spend a lot of time in the game in order to accomplish certain things. Those H&M parties that and link shells that people were in, they were no joke when you're looking for certain items. It's so different nowadays in modern MMOs.
Yeah,
for the better though. It's for the better.
I'm hoping that, it's interesting to me that they've chosen to pay tribute to and start grabbing a bit of this FF11 experience. I am reasonably confident that they will grab the less terrible, traumatizing parts of it.
Hopefully, I mean, because there's a lot of good storylines to pull from 11 that I hope we don't lose. So.
Yeah, no, a lot of the assets, a lot of the early characterization, the Mamul Jaw as a beast tribe came from 11. Like a lot of stuff in this game's DNA came from 11. So it's kind of fun to see them, and especially given that they've paid tribute to so many others, and that the MMO has been one that kind of stands apart from so many things. It's kind of fun and nice to see them giving it official recognition as a mainline thing, the same as the others. Yeah. It pleases me.
I wonder if this is where we're gonna finally get the introduction of the Kodav, because that's the only mob that we have major mob we haven't seen.
No, we never got. I don't think we had orcs.
Yes, orcs are
FF11.
Yeah, we have those orcs.
Where
aren't they in Sanlan? Yeah.
Are you thinking of the Amalja?
Yeah, you're right. That is the Amalja. I thought we had those orcs too somewhere.
Nope, we have never actually had those orcs.
So the orcs in the Kodav. Oh, and the Agudo.
Yes.
So the three beast.
Yeah, we've had
we need the three major beast tribes from 11 yet. We got goblins. We got mandragoras. We got
mandragoras weren't really a tribe.
But I'm just talking about the different mob types.
Oh, yeah, 100. All the various different versions of crabs. We do get the FF11 crabs and some of them. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of them where we get the FF11 variation is the one that appears on the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got those art assets. It makes sense to use them.
So I'm hoping that this 24-man will maybe bring in those beast tribes. And then, because I mean, we've got the demons as Void Scent.
Yeah.
So and we've got the Dahaks.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that they'd taken something in name and in aesthetic and repurposed the lore behind it to fit this setting. Yep.
And I would bet then it would probably focus on the Shadow Lord story.
Maybe.
Because I mean, that was the first part of the game was defeating the Shadow Lord, and and the expansion was the Zillert, which we got with the base game when it was released in NA.
Well, I mean, God, so national missions went up to rank 10. Rank 6 would be the defeat of the returned Shadow Lord, which was a mission for all 3 national lines. But then after that, it would go back to each nation to kind of focus on their internal problems. So, oh god, this is going to turn into a massive 11 deep dive if you let me.
Well,
I spent over a decade, including many of my formative years, on that. I will start meandering down all of these paths with very little provocation. So maybe we should move to other aspects of this.
Okay, well, how about we go ahead and move on, because that was the biggest pieces of information that we got from the keynote.
Yep, some gorgeous pictures of new dungeons. They did show one that starts with a river cruise, a little bit reminiscent of Lapis Manalis, where we're, or the Amnesis Annider, where we're getting to have a vehicle trip as part of it. To take us through a variety of environments. I do like that shtick, and I'm glad that they're continuing to use it.
Kind of like the ship in the graveyard starting off Stormblood.
Yeah.
Definitely could be something fun. We'll have to see what we get from that. But let's go ahead and move on and get into our discussion topic and talk about one of those things that we've really enjoyed doing: soundtracks. The last soundtrack, that we technically covered was the Compi de Chocobo, but I think we left off on Final Fantasy 13. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
So we
and
finished.
14 would be a year's worth of things in and of itself.
About that many. I've got that many discs for Final Fantasy 14, and thousands of different tracks. So let's do Final Fantasy 15 instead. Give me a second here. Paste that. As always, thank you to finalfantasy.fandom.com for the track list of everything that we're going over, if you want to kind of follow along. Today we are going to cover disc 1 of the Final Fantasy 15 original soundtrack, starting with the song that you get when you first start the game, Somnus. It's a beautiful piano song. And then we get the violin jumping in here, and it really sets the tone for Final Fantasy 15 that this is going to be a bittersweet game.
Yeah.
I mean, when you first started, did you watch any of like the Kingsglaive stuff?
I had, yes.
Or the Brotherhood anime that they had prior to release?
Yeah, it was established that this was going to be a bit of a different setting. We had a character who was the prince, which we've had like prince type characters before, but it often felt like in previous ones, the focus would have been on their identity as adventurers, as heroes. Here, the Noctis's identity as the prince, and as this as a tale of relating to this royal succession and this kingdom, was very much front and center from the get-go.
Yep. And what the game was initially centered on Noctis and his friends / companions / protectors. They're his most trusted guardians, so to speak. I think in many cases, are going along with him on his last hurrah before he gets married to a princess from a neighboring kingdom. So it's kind of like, that the whole boys' night out kind of thing. It realistically was what it was supposed to be. But then we have everything happening where the Empire comes in and basically destroys all of Insomnia, and then the story goes on with Noctis trying to figure out what's going on and save the world.
Yeah, it in that respect, it's a bit of a coming of age story where this what's supposed to start as a last chance to just enjoy and free is ended early, and has these new responsibilities thrust upon him. So
yep.
Definitely like that kind of coming of age growth, like together with these things and trying to find what the meaning is of this new role he'll be taking on.
All right, our next one is fitting. It's called Departure. This song plays when the party leaves Insomnia. So it's like one of the first songs that we get. We get a bunch of story beats talking about the king and Noctis and his friends, and and what's expected. We see Noctis as an absolute asshole to his father. He's a stereotypical teenage boy who is just wants to do his thing.
I mean, that's what teenagers are for.
Yep. That's true, but I mean, Noctis is quite a dick to his dad. Come on.
The teenagers as a whole are not frequently sympathetic characters. That's just what teenagers are. It's a life stage thing.
But you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of real somber notes in these first two songs.
Yeah.
Because I think it is starting to weigh on Noctis that his days of being a lackadaisical teenager are numbered. And
yeah,
I think
like it's supposed to be a fun trip, but even before the later developments, there is this aspect hanging over it of it being the last one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like, okay, now after I get married and take on the actual duties, what's next?
Right.
And that scares him, I think. I mean, it would scare me.
Yeah.
And then
it's that transition from childhood to adulthood, which is again one of the things that makes being a teenager so damn awkward.
All right. Our next bit comes very shortly after they leave Insomnia, as the team is pushing the regalia down the highway. They have broken down.
It would not be a road trip without something going horribly wrong at some point with the means of conveyance. Make sure to check your oil and fluids before you set out, kids.
Yeah, well, I mean that was supposed to have been on Ignis and the Royal Garage to take care of that, right? Shouldn't they have checked the oil and fluids before handing the keys over to Noctis?
Yeah.
And then probably my favorite song, or one of my favorite songs, at least from the beginning of the game. Hammerhead.
This one you're going to be hearing a lot.
You hear this song a lot in game. And this harmonica actually plays very prevalent throughout. Harmonica and guitar really play strong in 15. If you ever played come on, Crisis Core, the music from Crisis Core and Final Fantasy 15 are very, very similar. I believe a lot of it was composed by the same people.
It also puts me in mind of another RPG series, Wild Arms, where a lot of the earlier installments especially had a bit of a Western feel to them. Yeah. That strong harmonica and guitar is like a hallmark of the style.
But I guess I do believe that 15 and Crisis Core had the same musical producer. I don't have to
a bit of like organ here?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a Moog organ in there.
Yeah, it feels almost like a church service at that point.
I'm pretty sure it's just an electric organ. But let me see who the music producer.
So like a roadside church tent revival kind of thing.
Maybe.
Which it just kind of fits the whole vibe of like out on like not necessarily frontier. I mean, there are roads where they're going. Though this also fits with. We were discussing this a little before the show. How 15 is like you've had a lot of Final Fantasy that either were leaning hard into the fantasy aspect or into a bit more of the sci-fi aspects. Final Fantasy 8 and 7 to a lesser degree for those ones. And 15 is the one that feels the most like, okay, this is something that could be happening in a world very much like ours. There are still fantastical elements, but they do feel a little less you have gas stations, you have roads that you drive along. You're adjusting the car radio. There's just a lot about the feel of it that makes it feel like this is something that could be happening in the modern day. And so having something that sounds like it might be on your radio as you're driving through the heartland of America, for instance, really seems to fit with that vibe.
Okay, it looks like 15 was Yoko Shimomura. And Crisis Core, I believe, was Takaharu Ishimoto, but they might have had some. They might have played off of each other a little bit on these. Yeah. I wanted to at least be as thorough as possible, but the similarities are striking. Yeah.
And there's also some similar, like in terms of some of the environments that you go through, some of those like the lonely, dusty road. You do actually have some of these similar types of desert-style environments in Crisis Core as well.
Yep.
So this is music that does feel evocative of that kind of environment.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next one. These are both very long versions of the songs. So you hear this a lot when you get hit up Hammerhead. But as you're wandering the overworld.
And you will be visiting Hammerhead frequently as a base as well.
This is the overworld music called Wanderlust. As you're walking along, and this is the walking music, because in the Regalia you actually have the option to play different soundtracks that you can buy throughout the world, and get additional songs that you can play on the Regalia's radio.
Yeah, the expectation is that you're going to be going along the roads as close as you can to your destination and then hiking out to it where appropriate.
Yeah. Or if you were like me, you just run around anyway. Well, you had to start running around anyway because the car was broken. So you had to walk everywhere to start.
Yeah, early on, yes.
So yeah, this is something that you hear a lot, and I don't remember much of it, to be honest with you, because I ran around so freaking much. It just kind of became background noise. And you would encounter so many overworld enemies that you wouldn't hear it for very long periods of time unless you were just sitting somewhere. But when you did run into somebody that you were potentially fight, this is the encroaching fear, or when you were like spotted or you spotted an enemy, the music would change to this.
Yeah, and it's important to note that I don't believe this was the actual full-on battle music.
No.
This was the you're preparing for a confrontation music.
And when you're fishing, when fish are close to the bait, the music would change to this too.
Fun touch there. The fishing system in this was reasonably involved. Each of your party members has a specialty skill, and Prince Noctis's is fishing.
And it even got a VR game, Monsters of the Deep.
But yes, that same feel of this thing is approaching and battle is imminent.
And once battle occurs, this is the battle music you started with. It's called Stand Your Ground. This is the battle music in the Lied region. L-E-I-D-E. Lighty.
Yeah. You've got that, dude. You've got that little bit of prelude there in it. We've been missing a lot of those standard, like those Final Fantasy standards, but you heard it there in the music for a moment.
Well, I mean, this is one of those, once we got away from the Uematsu era, a lot of the standard stuff did change. I mean, 13 was a completely different sounding game from most of the others. 12 even, it was more evolution in its style versus some of the other ones, because you go back to like 11, 10, 9, 8, you had a lot of the standard sounds with certain pieces, and it started to change quite a bit in 12, 13, 15, 14 kind of kept it because it was the the crown jewel.
And also Uematsu did the music for 1.0.
He did, yes.
But yeah, even with those changes though, you still get those occasional stings and references to it. We did have that moment of the harp. It's not quite a glissando, but like the harp up and down. You do have a moment of that in this battle.
A bit of an arpeggio.
That's the term, arpeggio.
All right.
And you do have some of those hallmarks that we've seen in battle themes throughout the series, where you've got like moments of rising and falling actions, moments that seem a little bit more like on the defensive or taking a breath and recovering.
Yep.
Stuff that
Forward and back.
Stuff that again can be suited to a variety of different situations and kind of tries to pitch the feeling of a battle without necessarily being too forward, because your attention does need to be on the battle itself.
And once you complete your battle and are ready to rest up a little bit, we get the relax and reflect music. I've done it. I've come up with a new recipe. This is the time when you get to choose what Ignis cooks and what the cool part about the cooking with camping is you got the food you chose gave you different buffs.
There was a lot cool about that, and I'll get to that in a moment.
The graphics of the food were pretty amazing too.
The team actually spent no small amount of time going out and doing campsite cooking, preparing and photographing dishes and a variety of things to try to get, depicting cool and beautiful food is a thing that has been done before. But what they wanted to do was to capture stuff that would still fit the camping environment. Mm-hmm. Although you do get to spend some amount of time at your traditional hotels and inns and the like, for this road trip, a lot of the time rested is spent actually setting up camp. And some amount of product placement for Coleman products.
Yep. Thank you, Coleman, for sponsoring this video game.
Yeah, the product placement on this game was a little bit more than you've seen it. Anyways, but so they actually went to great effort to try cooking a lot of different dishes, including like some campfire variations of some fairly high-class cuisine things, but reworked to be something that would be workable in a camping environment.
Yeah, and I think they did an amazing job on it. It was one of the biggest things that people noticed right away in this game was,
you get gorgeous food, but also food that still looks appropriate to the situation.
And is actually, it's useful too. Like I said, it gives you buffs and bonuses.
Yeah, and it would not look out of place if you got it at a campsite. You would be like, okay, whoever's on campfire duty, whoever's on cooking duty tonight stays on cooking duty.
Yeah, and it was cool because
I've had my share of camp meals.
You could actually forage for a lot of the ingredients. You find them throughout the world, and and the more ingredients you found, the more recipes that Ignis would be able to cook, and it's really cool. And that's why the whole meme came up, because he was like, I've done it.
Now, the relax and reflect name is also reflective of some of the mechanics in the game, where although you would fight monsters and get experience points and build them up, it wasn't until you stopped at a hotel or at the setup camp that you would actually have your accumulated experience points turn into levels and stat improvements. The reflect portion turning those experiences of the day into the accumulated knowledge, having a chance to actually reflect on them.
And if you ended up accumulating enough points to level up,
some bit does stick around.
You get a little bit of that. And then continuing on, when you're done camping, you get a nice little ditty called Horizon. This plays after camping.
Yeah. Generally, whatever time you set up camp would break the next morning.
Yep, about 6 a.m. I believe.
Yep. So we've got a practically Peer Gynt's morning suite going on here. as the sun rises over.
And when you would get to the camps, this is the music that plays at campsites. When you would discover them throughout the world, the campsites that you can actually stay at are marked on the map, and they have like these special protective runes around them to kind of protect, to keep a lot of enemies away from those areas. So
one of the things that was emphasized is that, go ahead.
I was gonna say, when you hear this music, you know this is a place that you can set up safely and rest and recover.
Reflected in the name of the piece, Safe Haven.
Yes.
One thing that we haven't mentioned as much, but was a big part of the setting, and the reason that you can't just power through and actually have to take those breaks, is that in this setting, nighttime is an especially dangerous time. Demonic creatures tend to show up. There's reference to a thing called the Star Scourge, that comes with at night, where you have these like stronger influences making monsters stronger, more powerful. Nighttime is a dangerous time, and it's a time when you want to either be safely ensconced in a city or at one of these designated campsites with their protective runes.
Otherwise, you'll encounter these areas. This is the music you hear if you encounter an area where the demons can spawn, and it is called Lurking Danger.
You again have that kind of quiet premonition. It's not a battle yet, but you are in danger here. This is not a safe place to be, and you should be. You should move along.
This music is very tense. This is not safe. You should not be here right now. You should be camping in a Coleman tent.
Yes, it's quiet. It's not really strongly melodic. This is something it's not something you really want to be listening to. It's not something you're going to stop to listen to. It again kind of underscores the actions here. And so it is quiet. It is at the background. It's adding that, as you said, that tension to a scene.
Exactly.
Without, while still fading into the back. But with that sense that it could become stronger at any time.
All right, and then the next bit, one other thing that Final Fantasy 15 had was they had another hunt system where you could hunt special mobs or just take on specific tasks from different people within the world that would get you experience. It would get you loot and things like that you need to continue on the game. And
it was pretty much a direct takeoff of the hunt system from 12 or the Seath hunts that you would see in 13, but adapted for this one.
Yep, and so this is called Hunt or Be Hunted. So when you're taking on a particular hunt monster or one of those jobs given to you by the hunt guild, this is what you would hear playing for that, knowing that you were in that special instance at that point.
Yeah. At this point, we're still mostly the music in the early game. Mm-hmm. So after that initial introduction to Hammerhead, you have all the different activities that you might be taking up in the region, exploring around, camping overnight, and picking up those first early hunts.
Yep. You need to do all these things. You need to do all these things in order to build up enough gil to pay for the repairs of the regalia.
Yeah,
because while the proprietor of Hammerhead knows exactly who you are, he also knows your dad, and he knows that he would be like, you make him pay for this work.
Yeah.
So you have to
Daddy Dearest would not let us trade on our name, and he's not going to let us. Like, he knows it full well.
No, I don't think this is a spoiler at this point. This game's been out since 2016. The fact that Sid, the proprietor of Hammerhead, was one of the Kingsguard. Yeah.
One of the things we do learn is that just like Noctis has his guardians now, the king had his set of guardians when he was younger.
Regis? Was it King Regis?
I believe so.
Yeah, but Sid was one of King Regis's. If that's correct, I'll have to double check that. One of his Kingsguard, and we learned throughout as we go through the game.
Regis.
They did the exact same thing that Noctis, Gladio, Prompto, and Ignis are doing right now.
Yeah, so, there's actually an arcade-style beat-em-up that lets you play through that story.
King Philbin, not quite, Triss. But yeah, as we go through these hunts and we pay our we do what we need to do to be able to pay for our repairs, we meet a new character. We meet Sid's daughter or granddaughter?
Granddaughter.
Cindy. And everybody remembers when we were first introduced to Cindy, don't ya?
They really played up the fan service on this. It was one that was a little bit controversial. I think at first, because when it was announced, it was assumed that that Cindy was going to be our Cid and that there would not be a traditional Cid.
Yeah, well,
and so
what's funny in Japanese, her name is Sid, Cidney, Sydney.
And Sidney is not that uncommon a woman's name.
No.
So that would have worked, but yeah, I don't know why I decided to go with Cindy for the localization.
Because it made more sense.
I guess.
I would have been fine with Sydney though too. But I will say this, yeah, Cindy was hot. Not gonna lie. Sorry.
Blatant fan service.
Yeah, it was. But you know what? But
yeah.
Also a great character too. I mean, she was actually a really good mechanic in the game.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you could do with the regalia was and before I continue on that, Fair Eyes, glad to see you again. Thank you so much for resubscribing here on Twitch. Glad to see you. Hopefully you are been doing well. One of the things that we could do with the regalia is we could pimp it out. We could change its appearance a little bit. We could there were requests to enhance the speed, to do a whole bunch of different things to it, turn it into a monster truck, turn it into a flying car. These were all things that Cindy did. So that was kind of a cool little bit that they added in there. So she wasn't completely fan service. She did actually have a purpose too. So
yeah,
but yeah,
it was the usual type of thing where, like, they've had plenty of these in the Final Fantasy series where you have this attractive character who ends up having a lot more depth to them and a deeper story behind them.
Yep.
And Cindy was no exception on that. We learn about her admiration of the technology from the Crown City that she's been cut off from. The fact that the difficulties that she ends up being the first exposure to a lot of the difficulties that the kingdom has had to face. Mm-hmm. Difficulties that, as the future king, are now going to be front and center for Noctis's attention.
So the fact that we are learning of these things is very important at that point. But yeah, as I had mentioned, she will do a number of things that can pimp my ride, so to speak. We get a tune for that too, called Urban Chrome. When we get the car customized, this is the theme we get to hear.
Yeah, this is another one that really fits with kind of that whole modern feeling I was describing earlier.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, this is definitely a modern day Final Fantasy. You don't spend a ton of time on this screen for this portion of it, so it's not something you hear a ton of, but it's there, and it's nice that the team took the time to create a theme for this particular area.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and continue on. Our next theme is what plays at most outposts, and it's called A Quick Pit Stop.
A little bit reminiscent of that Hammerhead style with the harmonica.
Harmonica and guitar and organ. Those three instruments are probably have the most effect, on the songs in this game. Those are those three really hit strongest with this.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
This one is a little bit lighter, jauntier. As the name suggests, this is one for you're stopping at a gas station, filling up the car, maybe grabbing some snacks.
And it's something you have to do quite frequently. If you're driving the car, you have to keep it full of fuel. So you will have to stop at gas stations to fuel it back up. They really do a pretty good job. The regalia system and driving on the highway, you can set waypoints and you can make the car do the driving for you, or you can manually drive it around yourself, depending on what style you wanted.
Yeah, which is cast as either Ignis is typically the prince's chauffeur, or he may have the option to say, hey, let me take the wheel.
Yep. And I started by having Ignis be the driver and just take us where we needed to go, but then further on, it's like, this is more fun to drive, and you could actually have a lot of fun driving the car, because when Ignis is driving, he stays on the roads. When you're driving, you can go wherever the hell you want. And you do. So there's some areas you can't get to, though, because it's fenced, but
I tended to like having Ignis drive also just so I could enjoy the scenery. Whoever is driving, you also get conversations between your party members. They'll be doing different things like pulling out a book, flipping around with other devices, all the stuff that you might enjoy on a road trip.
Good. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Like those sequences especially, the plot beats of course do have a bit more like the various the serious soundtrack things, the culminating plot, but those moments in between where you're just driving from place to place, they really do capture that aesthetic. I know I mentioned that, okay, because of these plot developments, this thing has been like put to the side, but it's not completely lost, and you do get moments of that throughout the game.
Yep. Continuing on now, our next theme is called Love Lost. Now this first plays at Noctis's first flashback, and when Noctis sees Umbra at Cape Kime. I'm trying to remember this. I know Umbra is the dog. Yep. That goes back and forth between Noctis and Lady Lunafreya.
Yep. The romance was one of the more controversial parts of the game. A lot of players felt that it was not necessarily well developed, that Noctis had more chemistry with his bros, stuff like that. Well,
I mean, if you think about it, this was an arranged marriage between Noctis and Lunafreya.
Yeah, it's one that's shown that there is some amount of affection between them, but it's one that also could be taken as a bit more of a friends deal.
Or brotherly, sisterly.
Yeah.
Because Noctis was an only child, and, you know, while Lunafreya had a brother, he was nowhere as nice as Lunafreya was, so I think when they were introduced as young children, and you get some of that in flashbacks, and I think the demo, platinum demo, was kind of was Noctis's childhood, and maybe introduced a few of these things like Umbra, and I want to say Lunafreya was mentioned in there as well.
Yeah,
it's been a very long time since I played it, but
yeah, there's also some amount of since a lot one of the themes that comes up fairly frequently is this explorations of like kind of the roles and duties of a king, the idea of like, hey, this person that maybe you can't necessarily pursue the romantic love or the type of relationship that like a civilian might be able to.
Yep.
There's a lot of aspects of that, but it was one that definitely was a bit more controversial around the players, and a lot of people said that it fell a bit flatter for them.
It did seem forced initially, I'm not gonna lie, but
yeah,
the further you got into it, I think they did a better job of fleshing it out a little bit further, but the way it was introduced was a little bit, seemed forced and rushed.
Yeah.
But again, there was a lot of story. There were a lot of things happening in the world that we did not realize what were going on. And I think if you think about that, it actually made, when you discover what was going on, it gave it a lot more gravitas, and it made everything make a little bit more sense. I mean,
this is one thing that you see a lot, especially in a lot of more recent Final Fantasy games, where there's some amount of not necessarily directly in media res, but some amount of like you get put in and there's stuff going on in the background that is not immediately made apparent to you. That on a replay becomes more. But again, you do have to convince the audience to go along with you to the point where it is always a risky thing to do storytelling wise.
Yeah, I mean,
I know that Final Fantasy 15 was not as well received as some of the others, and it may be that part of it was that, again, they took the risk on this one, and it just may not have worked as well for as many players.
I also think the fact that it spent 10 years in development also, it suffered.
Yeah.
The story suffered because of the amount of changes that it made. This was initially supposed to be part of the Nova Crystallis universe, where 13 resided, but then they ended up splitting it completely off of that and making it into Final Fantasy 15 at that point, where it had similar story beats, but they had to change a lot of things, and I think a lot of the story did not get fully fleshed out because they were wanting to get it released so badly.
Some of the concepts, the broader concepts from the Fabula Nova
Crystallis.
There's Fabula, there's Nova, and there's Crystallis. You make them into a sentence.
I think it is Fabula Nova Crystallis.
Yeah, but you had a lot of those. You also saw this in Type 0, where some of the things like Falsi and Lassie and other stuff like that were, but had those different meanings, where you could see the DNA of the original 13 universe, the Fabula Nova Crystallis, that then ended up being reworked. So definitely, it does feel like it suffered a bit from that development cycle.
No, I mean,
unfortunate.
Type 0 was fully in Fabula Nova Crystallis universe.
Yeah. But it still had like some different usages of some of those terms, though. Yeah. Like the terms were there, but they ended up referring to subtly different things or stuff with different. They were used a bit differently and had different implications.
All right. Well, let's keep going forward with some music.
Yep.
The next one is the theme for the town of Golden Key. Nice little seaside town. Has a little ferry dock, a restaurant, a beach. You know, it seems like a nice place, right?
You've got some of those tropical feels that the same ones that we actually got in Relax and Reflect, which is amusing because Golden Key, I believe, is the first place with an inn that you can pay to stay at.
But you can't afford to stay there because I want to say it's like thousands of gil.
It's super expensive.
10,000 gil a night, something like that.
That was one of the other features. Camping, of course, you get that chance to relax and reflect and get those experience points. If you were able to afford to stay somewhere nicer, then you would get an experience points bonus. Yep. So you might get a 1.5, or I think Golden Key, for as expensive as it was, gave you like a triple modifier on
triple
the
or quadruple. Yeah,
it
was if you could afford to stay there and you had built up a lot of experience, you could really rake up the bonuses there and level fast.
But yes, you've got that. It is that like kind of seaside thing. It does have a dock that you launch out from that ends up being important for several later things.
Yep. Yeah, it's a nice relaxing little area. This ends up being a spot that you come back to quite frequently for quests and for storylines. So you come here a lot, and it's a real cool area. But our next theme...
It does tend to be a thing where when you find a new town, it ends up being kind of a staging ground for a while, from which you set out on your various, like, your main scenario stuff, your hunts, your other side quests.
Yep. The next theme, though, plays when we meet another new character. This is Arden. The character theme, the first character theme for Arden Azunia. During chapters 1 through 7, I guess. So.
Yeah, Arden starts out as he has involvement with the Empire. He appears to be their, I believe, Chancellor.
We don't know who he is to start with. He's kind of looks.
I think
he looks a little bit.
Promotional materials.
Yeah, he looks a little bit like the Fourth Doctor. He's got a hat, he's got a scarf, and he's got a trench coat. You know, and he's kind of got that a little bit of a laissez-faire attitude. Kind of seems like he's doing his own thing. Kind of seems like a really weird old man, just kind of wandering the side of the road or something like that.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a kind of like scruffy appearance to him, a little bit rough, travel worn, makes cryptic comments, provides useful guidance at various points. So he's definitely okay, who is this weird old guy and what's his deal vibe going with him.
Exactly, and that's exactly what they want to start off with. I mean, as you play the game, you realize, yeah, he is basically running the Empire, and even more so, he is basically a shade from the past who has been kind of living thousands of years trying to like, he was the brother of like one of the original kings of Insomnia, I believe.
Yeah,
and he got the short end of the stick.
He has interest in current events, we'll say,
because if I'm remembering the story correctly, the king had to go into that crystal or something like that to keep the world from doing something with the demons. It was a very confusing thing. All I remember is the kings of Insomnia end up becoming martyrs, so to speak. They end up killing themselves. Sort of.
Again, this is getting into the like kind of the idea of what the duties of a king are, and some of it's in like a little bit more of a kind of metaphorical. The big thing with Arden was that he was someone who had seen this as like the path that he wanted to take, who tries to do all these great works for it, and then ends up being snubbed for the duty and bereft of purpose and all that. Takes the whole thing fairly hard.
Yeah. And
so a lot of it is like him trying to like, not necessarily like in some cases take revenge, or in some cases but someone who saw himself as someone who had like put in the work, done all this stuff, and then is like abandoned by it and has all the feelings about that one might expect.
So at this point, he basically wants to fuck over the world.
A lot of this we won't find out until later.
Yeah, a lot later than where we're at right now.
But he does get introduced as someone who has a little bit of like, again, that's possibly sinister aspect, but he's also being helpful in various ways. He is presented as a bit of a strange enigma. Like, if you had not seen any of the promotional materials and stuff, didn't know the others, it would be a 50-50 bet as to whether he was going to be ultimately some type of villainous thing, manipulative to his own ends, or someone who is secretly helpful and this other thing in disguise.
Yep.
Like, he sets off a vibe that makes it very difficult to tell.
Yep. But he's introduced when shit starts to hit the fan, because this next theme is called The Aggressors, and it plays when the party goes to Insomnia after learning that it has fallen. So at this point, we learn that Insomnia was attacked by the Empire, and the king is dead. The fate of the king is unknown, I believe, at this point.
Yes.
Actually.
Up until this point, it had still been on the, okay, this is a bit of a fun road trip, one that's gone a little bit off the rails because of the breakdown and needed to get all this stuff together, and we're starting to have some of these other issues come up.
But then we hear on the news that Insomnia has been, Insomnia is ablaze, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, first thing that we do is turn that car around and try to head back, see what can be done.
And I think this plays as we're trying to get close to the gates of the city.
Yeah,
we're fighting through an Imperial barricade.
Oh, I'm reminded of how people felt in FF14 about Alamigo, where there was all this buildup and then we never got to go into the city proper. Because I think it ends up being something similar for Insomnia. The only times that you really get to actually go in are as part of effectively a dungeon crawl. There's never really a getting to do city exploration.
Yep. I mean, you get to see it a little bit at the beginning of the game and in flashbacks, but yeah, you don't get to play around in Insomnia in its prime.
Yeah, that is one that I wonder, if the development cycle had been a bit different, might we have gotten more of a chance to actually explore the city?
Unsure.
I don't know.
Let's go ahead and go to the next one, because this is called Nox Eternia, and it actually plays when we learn about the fall of Insomnia. So this is the song that plays, and it's very melancholic because Noctis does not know the fate of his father or anybody else that in the capital, any of his friends, family, as well as the guys with him. They have friends and family that they left behind too, that they don't know if they're okay.
Yeah. The Latin translation for this track would be Eternal Night, which, given that we've had this whole thing of like, we've been having a lot of night and day imagery, other things like that. Mm-hmm. And so this is like the fall of the king, this eternal night idea. Technically, depending on your interpretation of it, some would say that Noctis becomes king immediately, but also there's the, okay, it doesn't necessarily become officially recognized until he's coronated. Mm-hmm. There's lots of different fancy, like, a king is not a dictator. There's all sorts of procedure and ritual and stuff around this. So, and right now, the upshot of this is that the kingdom is in a state of flux and turmoil, and there's legitimate questions about who will be the ruler.
Yeah, and it's at this point until they can figure out what's actually going on. You don't want to go into insomnia and potentially meet the same fate.
Yeah, so when the seat of your kingdom is held by the enemy, no, the king has now become something that needs to be kept safe. You've established a base elsewhere. You start to consolidate your power. You take back your kingdom, or maybe you live out your life in exile, farming turnips somewhere.
Turnips.
I would play that Harvest Moon spinoff.
All right, our next theme.
See, that's what they should have done for the Final Fantasy 15 mobile games. None of this tower defense bullshit. Give me a Stardew Valley clone.
Anyway, this is the Hunters. It plays at the Prairie Outpost and the Meldacio Hunter HQ. So this is when you're going in to get your hunter jobs, to do those side quests, to either get better weapons, just to get better gear, or whatever you need to do. Yeah. Unlock some side content stuff. This is the theme that plays for that.
Yeah, you've got your various hunter jobs that you get from your various towns as well, but this is more the actual hub and center for hunter activities as a whole, not just the local things that are handing out jobs for the surrounding area.
And it's kind of got a little bit of a grittier theme, a little sound to it, like people who do what they need to do to get the job done.
Yeah, in contrast to all the various royal whatever, these are the mercenaries. This is these are the ones who fill in the gaps that they're the independent contractors. It's less pretty.
All right, our next theme is called What Lies Within. This is kind of like your dungeon theme, so to speak. It plays at these different dungeons, like Keycatcher Trench, Staylift Grove, Crestholm Channels, Baluv Mines, Castlemark Tower, and a section of the Piteos Ruins.
Yeah.
So
now these
a number
places
of different.
Aren't all necessary.
I wouldn't say they're not all dungeons per se, but these are areas. They're almost like overworld dungeons in some cases.
I mean, the big difference would be, as you said, it's not necessarily a place that is completely underground or indoors, but it is, as compared to the overworld where you have a lot of free, these are spaces that are a bit more confined. In that grove, you're moving through constrained pathways based on the locations of trees, other things like that. Yep.
It's areas that are designed to be a little bit tighter. You're going in there for a specific thing. I liken it more to a Final Fantasy 14 dungeon in that case. I mean, we call them all dungeons, even though a lot of them are overworld.
Yeah.
So it's that type of thing. Even though you can enter and exit them freely, you're not crossing into another zone per se. The nice thing about Final Fantasy 15 is it was basically all one zone. With a few minor exceptions, the entire world was interconnected. There were no loading screens for a lot of these places. So It was all
Yeah.
all interconnected things. You didn't queue into instances and things like that, or wait for different pieces to load.
This also means that you have like smoother transitions as you're
Mhm.
actually, it's not like, okay, you travel into this canyon and it goes from green and verdant to, oh, hey, suddenly we're in these rocky bits. Like you have that natural transition
Yep.
of the landscape as you're moving through it.
Yep.
That said, you still have something where there are relatively narrow paths you can make your way through, where you may have ambushes, hidden treasures, other things to deal with like that.
But
So in that sense, it keeps the dungeon moniker, even if it doesn't necessarily fit the dungeon that we would describe, the thing we would usually think of when we say dungeon.
Yep.
And this music reflects that, with again that
tense
thing of
and very ominous. Like there's a clear and present danger here.
yeah, it's not necessarily as immediate danger. There's a little bit more of kind of like the intrigue aspect, because there could also be like good things around those corners, or just like mysteries to be solved. It's not necessarily mystery more than danger, I would say, is the word I'd use there.
But as we know, there are actually a lot of enemies in these zones that we had to take care of. So
Yeah. Man, it took me so long to figure out that magic punches above its weight in that game.
yeah, I mean, magic was yeah.
I did not make much use of it. I was always wanting to conserve it, but holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, but what was cool is you could actually, turn it into little like magic grenades that you could give to the others. So you weren't wasting it, but you were able to convert it into other areas, and you could actually utilize it to power up other things too, I believe. So
yeah,
and you can
for anyone planning to do a playthrough of it, make use of and pay attention to the magic. I think I did not do enough of that, and that is absolutely my big regret. I struggled so much when I didn't need to.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, the gameplay, I thought the gameplay was pretty good overall.
Oh,
they made a lot of improvements, especially when you could do character swaps, and you could switch in and play as Gladio if you wanted to, or if you could be Prompto, more shooting.
Yeah,
you didn't always have to play as Noctis. And especially when you get into some of the other episodes that focused on the other people. We're not going to be covering those in this particular playthrough. Those episodes are a part of the second soundtrack. This is just going to be the original soundtrack for the base game that we're going to go through over the next 4 episodes. But let's go ahead and continue on to our next. We just have 3 more in this particular disc. Our next one is called Demons. I wonder when this plays. So when earlier we listened to it was, what was it called?
that one would be so let's see, not encroaching fear,
lurking danger. Yep. So when Lurking Danger was playing, if you got too close to the demons and you ended up engaging them, this is what plays then. So these only occur generally at night, or actually in caves. Demons can spawn down there as well if it's dark. The demons just need darkness. They do not come out during the daytime.
They also have pretty decent sensing ranges. I tried to sneak around them in order to get to stuff, instead of just like waiting for daytime. And no, demons sense you pretty well, and they hit hard.
Yeah, they're about twice as strong as everything else.
It goes out of its way, especially early game, to encourage you that no, you don't actually want to be fighting these.
Or you want to be driving away real fast.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you could outrun them in the Regalia, so that was helpful.
And even if you did manage to defeat them, more would just spawn almost as quickly. Definitely, especially early game. No, these are not to be toyed with. These are not.
It was fun to mess with them when you got a little bit further in game, and because some of the hunts required going against some pretty powerful demons.
Oh yeah, there's always the point where this thing that turned into this dangerous threat becomes something you can take on. That's always a great moment. But this early in the game is not that moment.
Exactly. All right, and our next theme plays during tours and is called Bros on the Road. So what you could do in the game is you could set like waypoints and things like that, and I believe this would play during those times. I'm trying to remember exactly when this came out. Or came about.
Ta-da.
Let me see if I can find something.
Okay, so this one I had forgotten as well, but it was introduced a little later on. It was a type of side quest where after you camp at a specific haven, one of your teammates would invite you for a special task.
Oh yeah.
Done.
Yeah, they happen infrequently.
Yeah. Yeah, it was introduced with episode Duskay, but so you have stuff like Prompto would invite you to scour the wetlands for mushrooms for the night's dinner.
Yep, I guess there are 10 tours available within Final Fantasy 15.
Yep. Ignis would have you do various cooking related tasks. Prompto would ask for help with photography things.
Kind of a neat little thing that you could do with your bros to kind of, you know, improve your friendship and learn a little bit more about each other. Because the biggest thing about this game was Noctis was trying to come into his own, and it was very awkward to start, but it's something that built well, I believe, over the course of the game. You started to understand more about why your friends were here, and in some cases you almost get to blows with them until you realize what's actually going on, and you come to some real good, you know, a cathartic resolution, and are able to continue on, and your friendship becomes stronger after that. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. Especially after some later game events and various things that go on with it, people's faith being shaken, again, like those starting to have those clashes in their beliefs, their ideologies, a lot of stuff again about like what the role of a king is and what each of them should be doing. But so again, the bonds between these two your teammates get explored a lot, which is another one of those things that lent to the whole feeling of, okay, you've got a stronger one with your bros than with Luna Freya.
Yep. But you're spending this entire game with your bros. You spend 45 minutes of the game with Luna Freya.
Also, several of your bros are hot.
Well, that's like your opinion, man. You can't tell me that
you didn't watch. You didn't. Can't tell me you didn't watch that whole scene sitting on top of the inn with Prompto and not feel something. There was chemistry there.
I didn't feel anything, but.
Oh well, you're just wrong.
The final tune from Disc 1 is called Fantastica. It's just a short little thing, and it plays when the party leaves the Norduskian blockade after defeating Loki Tumult in his MAX Curus. This basically was the end of the first portion of the game. You go in to this
military installation, I would say.
An Imperial base that's blocking off access to other areas of Eos. I believe that Eos is the name of this world, right?
Yep.
And once you beat this particular boss, the gates open, and you now have the ability to drive the Regalia in more areas. So it opens up more of the map to us. So it's kind of the next chapter, so to speak. Even I think it might be in chapter 2 or something like that when that happens, but that's the first disc.
It's kind of the point where it feels like you leave prologue and enter the game proper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of what we just went through here was a very extended but open to interpretation tutorial, because you even up to this point you could still do a lot of different things in a lot of different orders.
Yeah,
and it like I said, it was a pretty decent open world game for what it was.
Yeah,
it did not seem like a small area. There was a lot to explore in Eos.
Agreed.
But yeah, that's disc 1. We're gonna see when we end up doing disc 2, if it's gonna be in 2 weeks or if we wait until after Extra Life. But I hope you guys enjoy the music as much as I do, and being able to reminisce a little bit on our gameplay as we listen to the songs and talk about them. It's really refreshing.
It is making me want to dig it out and give another shot to it, because I never actually did finish it, and I kind of feel like I want to go back and give it another try.
You need to finish it because, like I said, it's one of those games where while it's not maybe a 10 out of 10 type of thing, it still has a strong story, and it has a very, I almost want to call it a typical Final Fantasy ending, where even though you win, do you really win? 16's storyline also reminded me of that, had some similar features of it moving through the storyline that had interesting parallels between 15 and 16, though just two very different time frames, without spoiling 16. So
yeah.
All right, anything else that you wanted to talk about about the 15
I've got at the moment.
Okay. All right, well, I think then that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like, subscribe, or follow us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, TuneIn, whatever your preferred podcatcher is. I can talk today. And if possible, leave us a rating and review. It helps other people find our show and lets us know how we're doing. If you really dig the show, you can consider subscribing to us here at twitch.tv/PhoenixDownRadio, where you'll get access to a number of subscriber-only emotes and badges. Or you can go out to Patreon at patreon.com/PhoenixDownRadio, like our benevolent overlord Aurora Fenrir, our Seeker of Nevermore Ravenheart, or our resident slacker Nicknar. All proceeds go towards growing the show, cover things like hosting costs, allow us to improve and upgrade equipment, as well as do fun things like contests and giveaways. But any kind of support, whether it's likes, emails, tweets, subs, follows, donations, all of that, we really appreciate it because we like interacting with you guys and the rest of the community. If you want to catch up on our backlog of episodes, you can go out to our website, PhoenixDownRadio.com. If you have questions, comments, suggestions, just want to say hi, email us at podcast@PhoenixDownRadio.com. You can also hit us up on Facebook, on our Facebook group at Facebook.com/PhoenixDownRadio. Any shout outs for you, Seyrr?
I'll go ahead and give a quick shout out to Susan, Chili, and Safe, who participated in my first Mahjong lesson. Safe a little bit after the fact because he fell asleep. But thank you for letting me practice my teaching techniques on you. It seemed like folks are having a good time and learning some of the basics of Mahjong. Really glad to do it. Hope that I'll see you all at the tables.
Be fun.
Yeah.
And then if they want to follow you, just hit up Discord.
Yeah, just come to the Discord. I don't even bother with the other socials at this point. Twitter, X, whatever is a dumpster fire. And honestly, like, social media is kind of uniformly awful. I'm good.
Yeah, so just join us on our social media platform, or our Discord server, actually. So it's where we have a community of people that we can talk with, hang out, and just have a good time with. And it's an open, safe space for anybody who wants to hang out and talk about whatever you want. So stop by and join us sometime. We really would appreciate that. I want to, of course, shout out Seyrr for joining me again this week. Enjoy your play in 2 weeks. Like I said, in 2 weeks, just a reminder for everybody, is our Extra Life campaign again. We are going to be gaming for a number of hours to raise funds for Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare here in Minnesota. So hopefully you're able to open up your wallets and help some kids as while we play some video games. We'll probably do, I want to pick up Super Mario Wonder and play that a little bit for you guys on stream. Maybe we'll get into some other games as well that we can play together. If you have suggestions, hit us up in the Discord under the Extra Life channel. you can email us questions or things like that, or suggestions you have for those. But I would appreciate if you guys can all stop by the stream while you are and join us there. It'll be great to see you. Shout outs to Nick Nar, for who's probably gonna be helping me with at Extra Life. I appreciate that. Fair Eyes, shout out to you for stopping in again. It's been a long time, and great to see you again, and hope you are doing well. And like I said,
always nice to see some friends.
Yep, and I can say again, always join us on the Discord channel so you can keep up with us and go from there. So for my co-host Seyrr Timono, I am Klauss Nightbringer, wishing everybody a great evening. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
Phoenix Down Radio is a production of PhoenixDownRadio.com and Illusion Productions. Final Fantasy XIV and Eorzea are trademarks of Square Enix. In-game content for Phoenix Down Radio is the copyright of Square Enix. Opening music for Phoenix Down Radio is provided by Guilty Gear Rock You. Check out the Metal Chocobo theme cover and many other music videos at youtube.com/Guilty Gear Rock You. Closing music for this episode is provided by Guitar Wanker 90. Please check out their full version of Matoya's Cave and other rock video game covers at youtube.com/Guitar Wanker 90. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of Phoenix Down Radio and its hosts and do not reflect the views of Square Enix.